broadcasting live from Seattle, Washington. Senay, where are you located right now?
I am in Rotterdam, the Netherlands.
In Rotterdam, the Netherlands. Tell us a little bit about Rotterdam.
Well, Rotterdam is a very nice city. It's the second largest city of the Netherlands, and it used to be a world port city. So a lot of people know it. And what I like about Rotterdam is basically every wine that is produced around the world and that has been shipped to Europe is coming through Rotterdam.
Oh, how lovely. That sounds wonderful. I don't
Very
know about Seattle, but we're a port too.
Yeah, yeah.
That sounds wonderful. So I'm Jessyca Lewis. I do a live broadcast. It's usually every Friday morning at 9 a.m. I have my wine notes, my wine spectator, and today I have my Amsterdam Starbucks cup. I'm drinking tea over here. Senay is in Europe, and so she's in evening hours. What are you drinking over there? I'm
Well,
drinking tea in Seattle.
well, Dutch people drink a lot of coffee,
A lot of
and
coffee.
so I just had my coffee. I think my fifth coffee. It's usually I don't drink, but because we have been doing this interview, so late, I needed some caffeine. And I think after this interview, I'll be going out in the city and have some Surinamese food.
Oh,
Do you know food
I
from?
don't. Tell me what is that?
Well, I think maybe you've heard about it, but it's a roti. I always like, tasting, trying different food. And I'm craving some Surinamese roti with
Oh,
chicken. Yes,
it
uh,
sounds wonderful.
it is, yes. So then I'll have some wine.
Okay. And so we're going to go ahead and start in some questions here. So do you want to start a little bit about what inspired you to pursue a career in the wine industry?
Well, it's not that I thought, oh, I want to be in wine or so. I think 10 years ago, 2013, 12 years ago already, I was living in Texas and teaching there at the University of Texas. And I love food and I love, making food for my guests. So I wanted to prepare a delicious Turkish meal for my Texan girlfriends in Austin, and I couldn't get any wine, Turkish wine, and a lot of people don't know about Turkish wine. So I had to search for Turkish wine in Texas, and I found a distributor in Houston, and I drove all the way to Houston, 4 hours, and then back 4 hours. But I got my Turkish wine. And during those 4 hours of driving and back 4 hours, I was thinking, why do people don't know about Turkish wine, and why can I not get any Turkish wine? In the United States. And so, as a journalist, I was really, really surprised and also got really curious. And so I dove into it. I went to Turkey. I talked to a lot of wine producers. I went to Thrace. I went to the Aegean coast and, talked to them. And then something really surprising happened. I didn't know much about Turkish wine. I only liked it. Uh, but then I found out that there were a lot of women in Turkish wine industry, and that was really a surprise for me. Um, and you know what they say, when you start in the wine industry, it grows on you. You get more and more curious. You want to know more and more. So that was, the foundings of my wine career, and I never stopped.
It's funny how we fall into these different situations that we're not expecting. I think so. Tell us about Turkish wine. So what differentiates Turkish wine to the other European wines?
Yeah, so Turkish wine. So you probably know the cradle of wine is Turkey, Georgia, Armenia, and then a little bit more, down like Lebanon. That was where wine started, and actually Karen McNeil's Wine Bible, there is a passage, I believe, in page 100 or 110 that says that Anatolia, which is Turkey, was the first country that made wine. So, and we're talking about 8,000 years ago. And so it started 8,000 years ago there in Mesopotamia, and then it went to Egypt, and then, the Greeks, they imported to, Greece, entered Europe, and then the Spanish, French, and Italian, they were so much more smarter. They started making wine, and then they said that, wine is from their country. But it all started there. And Turkish wine is old. So we have a lot of very, how do you say, different grape varieties. One of them is Öküz Gözü, but we also have Boğaz Kere. And what I like about these grape varieties is that they really also express what their names are. For instance, Öküz Gözü is mentioned bull's eye. That means that these grapes are as big as a bull's eye. And you can also really see those grapes are really big. And Boğaz Kere is another grape variety that is used a lot in Turkish wine. Boğaz Kere means that, it really, it doesn't hurt your throat, but it does something with your throat. So that grape variety is doing something with your throat. And what I like is that they really express the terroir, the Turkish terroir. Is that they are also, in general, heavier wines. So heavier than, the ones that we are used to, like Merlot or so. A lot of Turkish producers are now also blending Turkish grapes with the international grapes. For instance, one of the wines that I really like is from Urla, which is situated at the Aegean coast. It's not an old winery. I think they're making wine for 20, 25 years now. But they really successfully blended Boğaz Kere, for example, with Merlot, Nero d'Avola, and Cabernet Franc. And they make exceptional wines. Yeah.
It sounds lovely. I've been to Istanbul, so I've been to Turkey, but it sounds wonderful. I'll look in Seattle and see what I can find and let you know here in this market if we have Turkish wine.
Try them. I think all of us should
to.
try them. Yeah.
So we'll go to the next question here. So, how has the role of women in the wine industry evolved over the years?
Well, of course, I'm not an analyst. I also didn't really do research. What I do is, of course, read a lot about it. I follow a lot of, developments, and what I have been experiencing in the 12 years that I have been in this wine industry is that many women in wine organizations popped up. And I think they feel safe to do so. I think they also feel the urgency. And I also think that they see that it can be really successful to, form a group, to come together, to unite. And of course, we always do the things that we see that it's successful. So when you go to countries like Italy, a traditional wine country, they have a very successful Le Donne del Vino. They have been gathering together, doing a lot of events together for many decades. And then you have Vinissima in Germany. I think they are the oldest, by the way. And they have been, uniting for decades. So they know a lot. And then we have, of course, the United States, who has also a lot of women in wine organized from different states. But what I have seen is that I was surprised that there was not like a Dutch women in wine organization, or a Belgian women in wine, or a Turkish women in wine.
Okay.
And that is also the reason why I started the Women in Wine Expo, because I was like, so when I did my, how do you say that, my education and
Yes.
findings about Turkish wine, I was living in Texas, so I had to go to Turkey, and then I also went back to the Netherlands where my family lived, and so I had like a triangle travel. And the people that I met in Turkey were very curious about the women that I met in Texas, and the women in Holland, they were really curious about the women in Turkey. So I was like, you know what? I am going to try to get you all together, uh, because we can learn a lot from each other. And that's what I did. I started the Women in Wine Expo in a very organic, natural way, because I sensed that these women wanted to meet and learn from each other.
So do you want to talk? Do you want to talk a little bit about the Women in Wine Expo? And since it's naturally fitting in right now.
Yeah. So we are going to celebrate our fifth anniversary this year. And I think the Women in Wine Expo has two really specific goals. First is to give women in wine a stage, a podium. Uh, we want to hear their voices. And the second, and maybe equal important, but maybe even more important for me, is explore untraveled or less traveled wine regions. I think we all know how to get around in Italy, how to get around in Spain or France. We have been reading a lot about it. There has been a lot of books about it. But what do we know about Georgia? What do we know
Oh, I think
about
that's interesting. Yeah.
Tokai? What do we know about, let's say, Poland? Or what do we know about Turkey? We don't know. And we didn't even know about the UK. We know a lot about the UK because it's a wine importing country. It's the wine hub. But what do we know about English wine? Where do they make English wine? So I want to explore together with the women untraveled wine regions, and I want to give them a stage. We also try to give the stage to new voices. Of course, it's very, very appealing and very, how do you say, very easy to get the usual names that you know that have a lot to say, and it's always nice to have big names at the conference. But what I am really interested in is the voices that we didn't hear yet. What do we know about the women in wine in Tokai? What do we know about Turkish women who are making wine in exceptional ways? What do we know about Dutch women in wine? Because Holland is also making wine. So, as a journalist, but also as an organizer of a conference, I'm always looking for what do we not know, and what do people want to know. So that is always for me a challenge, and also for my team. But it's always really nice, rewarded.
It sounds so. And I wanted to ask you. So I'm going to ask you here. Well, one of the reasons I started this Women in Wine YouTube channel was the same thing. There, I found that, well, men and women would like a voice, but I have a Women in Wine YouTube channel that I'm also doing, and I've had a lot of women passing me around that are really interested in having a voice. And so during the pandemic, I created this channel on social media where we could watch each other speak. And so it started during the pandemic where we were all in lockdown, but I created this area where we could watch each other. And so I've been passed from person to person. So I'm happy to interview any of the women in these other countries that would like to be interviewed as well. And so, what challenges have you faced as a woman in the wine industry, and how did you overcome them? Or what do you think women in the wine industry, what their challenges are, and how are they overcoming them? You can look at it as a bigger picture if you'd like to.
Well, I think so. That's a really broad question.
Yes,
You know,
you can
we
narrow it to however you'd like to.
no, I can talk about, the general challenges that, you have in general, in general in the wine industry, which everyone has. But I can also say, okay, what are the specific challenges that women are facing? And one of this, and then I can also look at it from my perspective as, a new woman in wine in the industry, or I can also go and look at the women who have been, established women in wine in the industry and still facing a lot of problems and challenges. So from my point of view, it's already there. So I'm Senay, and I have a Turkish background, and I also have an Islamic background. And many people do not, of course, combine wine with Islam. So it's that is already a thing that I always have to defend to people when I say that I am a woman in wine. And then you also have, of course, the alcohol problem, as if we are promoting using alcohol. That's another typical challenge that we all are facing. But what one constantly recurring challenge is always people saying to me, do you need a special program for women? They should just mingle in the wine industry. They should just, don't, the DEI thing. Some people don't believe in it because, yes, finally, we should forget about, positive discrimination, like we say in Holland. But we're not there yet. We are still, walking back from the men in wine because we have been avoided, how do you say that, or ignored for a big amount of time, that we are also contributing a lot to the wine industry. And I even gave a TED talk about it because many women, wives, husbands, daughters, daughters, mothers, help their husbands and brothers and fathers in the wine industry, but they don't get the label. They don't get their names on that label. So women do the hard work, but they don't get the recognition for the hard work that they deliver. And until we have been equally represented in the wine industry, and until women sommeliers in wine bars and restaurants are accepted equally as their male partners, male peers, we have to continue doing this. And what I really like about this, what I'm doing, and I think you have the same, is, we have to get rid of the fact that young women, girls, always have to fight for their voice, always have to fight for their stand. They see what we're doing and they should think, oh, that's normal. I can do that. Oh, that's normal. A woman. Yes, I can do. I can be a CEO. I can be this. I can be that. So when something is constantly repetitively coming back, then it's becoming normal. Like for men, it's normal to make a career. And then another challenge that I really saw, and I really try to encourage them. So in this timeline that I have been in, I have met a lot of really young talented women in wine. They were sommeliers, they were winemakers, they are still sommeliers and winemakers. And then, they get a family, they get pregnant, and there's a challenge. What do they do? How do they continue their career? They cannot attend events, for example. They have to stop, they have to pause 1 year, 2 years, maybe more. So those are really the challenges that women are facing. And how do we cope with that? I don't know. I don't know. But
Do you think it mirrors just society in general, or do you think it's specific to the wine industry?
I think, the wine industry has its own challenge because of the alcohol. So if
Okay.
your job is involved with alcohol and your body, and, that's perfect, everyone has to, choose for themselves. But I always say to them, please don't quit, what you're doing, because you're so talented. We need your expertise. We need your insight. Um, and then and I hope that they also feel welcome afterwards. So, and it's and they need more role models, that it's doable. It is doable to be a woman, making a career in the wine industry. It is doable to get pregnant and, give birth to a baby and then come back to the wine industry. We are all professionals, so we can all deal with it professionally. So that's what I'm trying to advocate for.
So I think we're both here to give a voice to women in general, and are both activists. And so I like you everyone having a voice and being, and that's one of the things that I feel is giving other people a voice to speak. And so let's see here. What initiatives or programs have you implemented to support and empower women in the wine industry? So you talked a little bit about that with your Women in Wine Expo. Is there anything else that you wanted to add to that?
Well, the nice thing about the Women in Wine Expo is also that it's never in the same country. So our event is traveling, and we really thought about it, why we want to do that. So we initiated that way. Is we want the women travel with us. We want them to explore with us together, the unexplored wine regions. That's why, we did it in the Netherlands, we did it in Georgia, we did it in the UK, we did it in Portugal, and now it's Tokai. And we are now, thinking about 2026 and 2027 already, where should we take our, caravan, like I say, with us to explore. And there's another reason why we did it. Many women, they, even though they're, independent, even though they know how to travel, they like the idea that they will do this together with other women. We had, for example, the Women in Wine Expo in Georgia, and I asked a group of they were women journalists, women wine journalists coming from, every part of the world. And we had this trip in a bus, and I asked them, is there a difference with other conferences where, men are also involved? And they said, there is. I feel so much like safer to just say what I want to say without somebody really interrupting me, or telling me that I don't know something. So I feel free to speak out loud, even if I'm insecure. I just feel free to see and it's scientifically proven that whenever you give a man a microphone, you don't get it back. So when they start talking, you've lost the microphone. And so I think, yes, I have been presenting a lot, and I know how the dynamics work. And so we should really give the microphone to women, and they should speak out what they think, and they should be more in books, they should be more quoted in articles, in newspapers, in analysis, in reports and programs. Um, and if our younger generation sees that, they will say, hey, I want to become a wine professor, I want to become, sommelier, whatever, because it really has to give them the feeling that it's normal to do that.
Yes, and that kind of goes in. The next question I have here is, how important is mentorship for women in the wine industry, and how can it be fostered? So I think that goes together. Do you have anything else that you'd like to add to fostering younger women in the wine industry? You're already doing that.
Yes, so I think we all have a role. We all have a role, and I always take my roles very seriously. Um, and without you noticing it, people look at you. Young women look at you. They follow you. They listen to you. So it's very important that we say sensible things. And that we support them. And I will never forget, that was at a conference in Austin, Texas. It was a Women in Wine conference, and one of the participants there, one of the guests on stage, I was moderating the conference, one of the guests said, women should advocate more for each other. And I really believe in that, because we can expect men to advocate for us, and they do, but we can really encourage each other and be really meaningful for each other if we advocate for each, for us, for the women. I think that is also like mentorship. And I think what we're trying to do with the Women in Wine Expo is to create a diverse group. So we have the older generation, we have the younger generation, we have the professionals, we have the students coming all together, and they can learn from each other. But we also want them to be open-minded. So we don't want them to come there and say, I know how it should be done. No, be open-minded to the region, to the culture of that country, to the tradition of that country, and we hope that they always go back to their house, to their homes, with a real fresh insights about the industry, because let's face it, we all need that. The wine industry needs fresh perspectives, fresh insights. Otherwise, we are doomed to, how do you say that? To go down. The wines need to have fresh stories. How do you say that? The story has to be told in a fresh way, in a modern, fresh way. So, and how can you create that? You can only create that by being diverse, not being like, in a tunnel vision, because only that way you can learn how to create your new story.
So in closing, so we're close to 30 minutes. Would you like to talk a little bit about what your expos look like? So if I were to go on a trip, what would we be doing, and what does it look like?
Oh, so every Women in Wine Expo is different. Of course, we have a format. We always start with, on Wednesday night, we start with a meet and greet. And we ask the women coming from all parts of the world. Last year in Porto, we had almost 100 women coming from 27 nations.
Nice.
Really, and we asked them to bring a bottle of wine from their country. They don't have to make it themselves, just a bottle from their country. So we have there a table with, a lot of wine from 27 nations. And because they have been following each other on Instagram and we have been promoting them, they have already some information about them. Then they get curious about each other. So they meet on Wednesday night. The next day is always exploring the region. In the UK, we went to Kent, we went to visit English wineries and taste some fantastic English sparklings. In Georgia, we went to Chateau Vera, which has fantastic Georgian wines. And this year in Tokai, we're going to visit some women-led wineries in Tokai. And as you know, Tokai is the world's first classified wine region, even before Burgundy or Bordeaux was. So it has a real rich tradition. And they, of course, make this fantastic sweet wine, Asu wine, which is only there. It's mesmerizing. I've been to Tokai now for 3 times, also for the Women in Wine Expo, but and that's what I also like about, what I'm doing now. Every wine region that I'm visiting now, I'm like, oh my God, this is beautiful. So on Thursday, we will be visiting vineyards and cellars and taste a lot of wines. The next day, most of the time is the last day, is the conference day, which is the longest day. We have, speakers, we have panels, we have discussions. And this year, we have a speaker from the US telling us about, the recent developments with regard to import tariffs. A lot of people in Europe and, outside the US are worried about that. We have a gorgeous winemaker who is making biodynamic wines, and maybe you've been following it, but it's one of the trends. It's natural wines, organic wines, but also biodynamic wines. And not many people know that biodynamic agriculture started in Hungary 100 years ago. And that's also what I'm trying to do with the Women in Wine Expo. I try to find the uniqueness of that country. Why is it unique for us to be there with regard to wine? So she will tell us all about biodynamic winemaking. We will taste it, but we will also taste a lot of Asu wines. We will taste a lot of Hungarian red wines from other regions in Hungary. With regard to biodynamic winemaking and biodynamic agriculture, going to that holistic vision of winemaking, we also have an expert in meditation because the venue that we will be doing the Women in Wine Expo this year is gorgeous. It's a wine castle that used to be a wine school. Like 150 years ago. It's now a wine castle. They make their own wines, splendid wines. So in between the vineyards, they have also beautiful chapel, which oversees the mesmerizing view over Tokai. So we will be having there some meditation sessions under the guidance of an expert to really connect with the soil and the air and the stars, etc. I'm very curious. I don't know much about it, but I'm very curious to learn more about biodynamic vision and science.
Sounds lovely. Well, thank you so much, Senay. So we'll go ahead and end the broadcast, and I've really enjoyed talking to you. And this will be airing on March 7th. And so that'll be really fun. So everybody will be able to see you and your lovely conversation. And I've really enjoyed talking to you. So I'll just end this here. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jessyca. I love what you do, and I hope to see you in Tokai.
I hope to see you too. Thank you.
Bye.